In our Beijing bureau with more on this. So, Kristie, it has been quite the day, much like the one 10 years ago, but with a few added bonuses.
Yeah, it's another big celebration. This time the milestone marking 70 years since the founding of modern China, since the founding of the People's Republic of China. It is National Day. It is a day of celebration of fireworks here in Beijing, but also a day of admiring the military prowess of the PRC. The centerpiece was that military procession that happened in the last hour, where we saw a number of new pieces of military out on display, including the DF-41 intercontinental ballistic missile. We'll be speaking to a military expert shortly about that. Also happening right now on your screen is the Citizens March, a massive procession involving some 100,000 people, as well as floats from various provinces across China, from Xinjiang to Hong Kong. And now we have my colleague, correspondent Will Ripley, standing by in Hong Kong, because this day is a very contrasting day when you compare what's happening in Beijing to Hong Kong. And Will, how is National Day being marked there in the territory?
You know, it's interesting, Kristie, because so far today things have been relatively quiet, actually very quiet, considering that normally on a public holiday in Hong Kong you'd have businesses open, people out shopping. But this here in Causeway Bay near Sogo, which was the starting point for a protest on Sunday that ended with violence, it's been relatively peaceful. I mean, you see they've closed the Causeway Bay subway station, so it'll be difficult for protesters to come here and assemble. There have been calls to assemble here within the next hour or so. You do see some people in black, but these are not the obviously radical fringe protesters, the kinds who are carrying Molotov cocktails and who are picking up bricks from the sidewalk and hurling them at the police. These are the peaceful demonstrators, relatively small numbers of them, but peaceful demonstrators who are out here to see what happens. And we saw riot police kind of stationed along the street where we are within the last couple of hours. They've since cleared out. But you can see it's just extraordinary. Businesses that would be catering to mainland tourists, to people who are out on the public holiday, closed. And that's the situation here. You see all the people in vests. These are all the reporters, including us, who are out here waiting to see what happens. Not too many protesters at this stage. But again, Kristie, it's going to be crucial to see how things develop in the coming hours, because any demonstration today in Hong Kong, there's no police permit, there's no authorization. It would be an illegal gathering. So people who come are prepared, presumably, for a confrontation with police if they try to disperse the area. Haven't seen that yet, but the day is still young, Kristie.
Yeah. The day is still young, Will, and I want to ask you more about the police response. How much pressure is the Hong Kong police force under to quell any outbreak of unrest on this day, a very sensitive anniversary?
I think they're under a tremendous amount of pressure, Kristie, which is why you heard in that police press conference just yesterday, they said that the violence that we saw right here in this area over the weekend is moving Hong Kong closer to terrorism. Police say that the attacks on officers, the attacks on property, the fires that are being set, the handheld weapons, the bricks, the petrol bombs that are being hurled in the direction of officers, they say all of that is closer to terrorism than Hong Kong has ever seen. And for police to use a strong word like that is an indication of how they plan to respond if things do deteriorate today. The #1 priority of the Hong Kong government is to maintain law and order today, to avoid the kind of split-screen moment where you have the demonstrations, the celebrations in Beijing and the parade and the huge droves of citizens contrasting with images of fires and unrest and protests here in Hong Kong. We don't have that split-screen moment right now, but again, the protests aren't even due to kick off for another hour or so. It's interesting, Kristie, that Hong Kong's chief executive, Carrie Lam, is not here in Hong Kong today. She flew to Beijing yesterday along with a delegation of more than 200 Hong Kong officials. She's expected to arrive back here in Hong Kong this evening, local time. I guess the big question is, what will she be finding when she arrives back from the Chinese capital?
Yeah, absolutely, especially if that split-screen moment does indeed take place, where we have on one side protests and unrest in Hong Kong, and the other side pomp and military power on display here in Beijing. Will Ripley reporting live for us. Thank you. Now, David Culver is standing by on the parade route here in the Chinese capital. And David, the military parade is over. The Citizens March is underway. What are you seeing?
Yeah, this is really a moment of kind of the crowd engagement, if you will, Kristie. There's a lot more folks who are on their feet. In fact, got a few of them who have crowded in around here. The reality is this is a moment for people to really connect with their fellow residents, either of Beijing or from across China. What stands out here is that you've had really the parade of military might, right? The flexing of China's power. And there's no question when it comes to that. But China also pushes hard and focus on its people. And this is the moment of that parade that's really trying to showcase that element. From a historical context, you have to put yourself back 70 years to 1949, and you have to imagine what the folks who were, say, born in that year have seen in those 7 decades. They've gone through crushing poverty. They've gone through famine. And then they've seen this surge of wealth come into their country, and they're now living this new normal, and they're in many ways trying to adjust with it. It's a fascinating look at 3 different lives that our digital team put together, CNN.com. If you want to check that out, I invite you to do it. Ben Westcott, one of our digital producers, and Lily Lee, my colleague here in Beijing, put together this piece chronicling the lives. And you look at the faces out here, and they're of all generations. But it's particularly the older generation that you see really connecting to this moment. It's the older generation that over the past several weeks, Kristie, has been lining the street corners, as no doubt you have seen, walking around places here in Beijing. They have been volunteers to make this moment so special, spending their time to either be eyes and ears for police so that things run smoothly, or to help with the logistics of the parade like this. And behind me, you can see that showcase of joy and this really moment of letting it all come out, Kristie.